Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. We just completed our executive session, which we started about 6 p.m. in the superintendent's room here in Harrison School. That meeting was to address or discuss personnel, litigation, miscellaneous and old business matters. It was advertised and was compliant with the Open Public Meeting Act and NJSA 10:4-6, which is also known as Sunshine Law. The matters discussed will be made public when confidentiality is no longer required, and personal action pursuant to said discussions shall take place only at a meeting to which the public will be invited. We are now ready to begin the regular public monthly meeting here in the Harrison Conference Room at approximately 7:05 p.m. The Board of Education, this meeting will be streamed as well, and also obviously present here in the Harrison Conference Room. The Caldwell-West Caldwell Board of Education regular public monthly meeting is compliant with the Open Public Meeting Act and NJSA 10:4-6, which is also known as Sunshine Law. Notices have been sent to the Progress, Caldwell, New Jersey, the Star Ledger in Newark, New Jersey, Tap Into in West Essex, and also were posted here in the Board of Education Business Office in Harrison School at 104 Gray Street in West Caldwell, and have been delivered to both clerks of Caldwell and West Caldwell for posting. Brian, can I ask you to take the roll, please?
Yes. Student Representative Claire Kiernan.
Here.
Mr. Diambola.
Here.
Mr. Elko. Ms. Getty. Ms. Grosso.
Here.
Mr. Cipoletti.
Here.
So we have three voting members present, 2 voting members absent. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Can we all rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Claire?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brian, do you have any communications to share?
None.
Dr. Conklin, Superintendent's report?
Yes, I'd like to invite Mr. Doug Silvestro from the Bush Law Group to come up. He has a presentation for us tonight about the harassment, intimidation, and bullying laws. So we kind of have to move around. We're going to drop down.
Slide your chair.
Thank you, Dr. Conklin. Thank you, Board. Dr. Conklin asked me to be here tonight to give a quick update to the Board of Education about some recent changes to the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act and a new law that was actually passed back in January of this calendar year, but is effective now, dealing with some issues about cyber harassment and parent liability. Dr. Conklin also believed that this would be helpful for the public because although school staff receives HIB, harassment, intimidation, bullying training on an annual basis, and as new hires, the public only gets really what comes home through their kids or what they search out for. So we wanted to make sure that parents had some up-to-date information about this issue because it is definitely something that is ongoing and is changing every day. So we wanted to make sure that the parents were well informed as well. So the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, as noted here, was first enacted back in 2010, but this wasn't the first time that there were bullying laws on the books in the state. In fact, bullying laws have been around for over 20 years. What really happened in 2010 was this is when you saw the concept of HIB reporting, investigations, hearings, kind of that documented tracking of information that didn't previously exist. But even the concept of cyber harassment as being prohibited in schools has been around since 2007, excuse me. So this is not something new, but we'll get to some of the newer changes in a bit. Just one key thing to remind everybody of, that the anti-bullying statute protects students, but anyone can be deemed an aggressor. So as long as the, for lack of a better word, victim is a student, teachers, staff, parents, third parties, other students can all be found to have committed an act of bullying under the statute. So I know there's a lot of word salad here on the slide, but I'm going to go through it just because I think this is important. This, as you see in front of you, is the definition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying under the law. So I know it's a lot to see. I understand from Dr. Conklin a copy of these slides will be made available on the district website. Another place you can find this definition is in the board's HIB policy, which is also accessible via the website. So, harassment, intimidation, or bullying means any gesture, any written, verbal, or physical act, or any electronic communication, whether it be a single incident or a series of incidents, that is reasonably perceived as being motivated either by an actual or perceived characteristic, such as race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, or a mental, physical, or sensory disability, or by any other distinguishing characteristic that takes place on school property, at any school-sponsored function, on a school bus, or off school grounds, as provided for and has the statutory site, that substantially disrupts and interferes with the orderly operation of the school or rights of other students, and then has to meet one of the three following categories. We'll get to that in a second. I do want to pause. I know that was a lot that we just kind of went through. I just want to very briefly go through some of the key elements of this first paragraph. If you notice there, any gesture, written, verbal, physical act, electronic communication, pretty much anything that occurs can be considered an act of bullying. Kind of satisfies not just one classic act. It can be verbal, it can be nonverbal. And as you see, the electronic communication kind of covers the e-bullying issue. It does not have to be a whole series of incidents. A single incident can qualify. This is a key that I think a lot of people either aren't aware of or tend to forget when you think about using the phrase bullying. Kind of a classic understanding of bullying, kids, on the lunch ground, beating each other up for lunch money, that kind of thing. This really goes beyond that. What they're looking for here is the motivation or the perceived motivation behind the actual conduct. So it's not just that a bad thing happened to a student. That is still covered by the Student Code of Conduct and will be treated accordingly. What makes something potentially HIB is it a third person viewing that act? Is it reasonable to believe that the act was because of the victim's, and then you insert perceived characteristic here, right? So the law kind of gives the classic protected classes that are covered by the law against discrimination. But key here is that or any other distinguishing characteristic. The law is very broad. It doesn't have to cover one of the named things. Anything that is a distinguishing characteristic of the target of the bullying, if we believe that that's the reason why the bullying occurred, it meets this part of the definition. And again, the conduct has to substantially disrupt or interfere with the orderly operation of the school or the rights of students. And this is just to drive home that it's not every minor incident in the schools automatically becomes a bullying case. Certainly name calling can be considered bullying, but two students messing around that doesn't actually substantially disrupt or interfere with the school doesn't rise to the level of bullying. And then again, after meeting all of those factors, you have to meet one of the following. A reasonable person should know under the circumstances will have the effect of physically or emotionally harming a student or damaging a student's property or placing a student in reasonable fear of physical or emotional harm to that person or damage to their property. Or the conduct has the effect of insulting or demeaning any student or group of students, or creates a hostile educational environment for the student by interfering with the student's education or by severely or pervasively causing physical or emotional harm to the student. Typically, in most cases, if you've gotten through that first paragraph, one of these three elements is met. But again, it's important for parents and everyone associated with the district to understand for an incident to be considered bullying under the law, it must meet this full definition. Again, so when you're using words like bullying or harassment, understand that the school is looking at it through the lens that the law requires. That's not to say that it's not important to report misconduct to your administration, to your teachers, but this is when someone might say to you, for example, that this was dealt with as a code of conduct violation, but it doesn't rise to level of HIB. This is the standard that they're judging it by. So conduct outside of school is always an issue where parents oftentimes are looking for the school to intercede in matters that are happening off school grounds. Sometimes they're taking the position that the school should not be involved because it's not happening in school. But as it notes here, the law actually requires the school to get involved in things that happen off school grounds, but only under specific circumstances. As it says here, the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act requires that the district provide appropriate responses to HIB that occurs off school grounds in cases in which a school employee is made aware of such actions. So obviously, if you don't bring it to the school's attention, they can't do anything about it. But if you do bring it to the school's attention and it constitutes HIB, the district is required to have appropriate responses to that off-school grounds conduct. Discipline can only be imposed for, against students for things that happen off school grounds when it is reasonably necessary, that is, the discipline is reasonably necessary for the student's physical or emotional safety, security, and well-being, or for reasons relating to the safety, security, and well-being of other students, staff, or school grounds. So again, unless there's an immediate safety or security issue that requires discipline, something that happens off school grounds doesn't necessarily come into the schoolhouse, doesn't fall under the purview of the district. And finally, conduct that's subject to discipline must materially and substantially interfere with the requirements of appropriate discipline in the operation of school. Again, not every tussle between kids or disagreement between friends necessarily has that impact on school that brings it under the school's purview, but it's not to say that the school authority ends at the schoolhouse lines either. There is some requirements that the district get involved depending on the severity or the impact on the school of the off-school conduct. So this is a new part of the law. In addition to updates to the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, a lot of procedural changes, notification changes. There was a law passed regarding cyber harassment as part of a bill package back in January. And this created a new crime where it says a person commits the crime of cyber harassment if while making one or more communications in an online capacity via any electronic device or through a social networking site, and with the purpose to harass another, the person either threatens to inflict injury or physical harm, knowingly sends, posts, comments, requests, suggests, proposes any lewd, indecent, obscene material to or about a person with the intent to emotionally harm a reasonable person or place a reasonable person in fear of physical or emotional harm, or the conduct threatens to commit any crime against the person or the person's property. So key takeaway from this, usually when we're talking about criminal code, people thinking are adults, this applies to minors as well. This was really geared, frankly, when it was written towards minors. Now there are different, depending on the age of the perpetrator, the level of the offense goes up. But the impetus for this statute was actually a real-life case, as most laws in most states are the product of real-life events. There was a 7th grade student in another district, not this district, who the parents' claim was subject to continual harassment both in school and online. And unfortunately, that 7th grader did end up committing suicide. And the legislature responded by passing this law to actually make it a crime to engage in cyber harassment of minors in general. Another part of that law that came through as well, also because of that case, is some liability and implications for the parents of students of minors who engage in cyber harassment. As it notes here, if a minor under the age of 16 is adjudicated delinquent for cyber harassment, the court may order as a condition of the sentence that the minor, accompanied by a parent or guardian, complete a satisfactory manner one of the following: either a class or training program to reduce the tendency of cyber harassment, or a class or training program intended to bring awareness of the dangers associated with cyber harassment. So again, this would be a minor under 16 is adjudicated delinquent, is found essentially guilty of committing cyber harassment. Not only can the judge impose penalties on the minor, they can impose these requirements on the parent or guardian as well. Also, a parent of a minor under 16 who's adjudicated delinquent for cyber harassment who fails to abide by court-ordered conditions, such as attending these classes, is themselves considered a disorderly person and can be fined $100 first offense, $500 for each subsequent offense. This means if the parents don't follow through, they can be essentially criminally charged themselves, be found to have committed a misdemeanor, and pay a fine to the courts. And finally, this is kind of one of the big takeaways: a parent or guardian having legal custody of a minor who demonstrates willful or wanton disregard in the exercise of the supervision and control of the conduct of the minor adjudicated delinquent of cyber harassment or harassment may be liable in civil action. So what this means is that if you're the parent of a minor, your minor is found essentially guilty of cyber harassment or harassment, and you meet this willful or wanton disregard. Basically, you're found to have not parented your child correctly. The parents of the victim can sue you in civil court for the actions of your minor child. So just, again, we want to put this out there. This slide doesn't have so much to do with the school, but it is tangentially connected to the school in the sense that a lot of this conduct touches on the school, complaints about HIB and bullying in the school. So if you're being notified as a parent that your child may be alleged aggressor, may be engaged in kind of e-bullying or cyber harassment of another student, it is something that we need you to, even before this law was passed, obviously pay a lot of attention to, work with the school district, but even more so now because there are potential civil penalties if those things are not addressed. Dr. Conklin and board, that is it for my presentation tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Silvestro.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
The parental liability, just to confirm, is a new law established January of this year?
That's correct.
And the same thing with the cyber harassment?
Yes, the cyber harassment, parental liability, those are all new January of 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Silvestro.
Thank you. Thank you, board.
Before we jump back, you open for questions if anybody has any? Anybody have any questions about what presentation you just saw? Okay. Dr. Conklin, anything else on your report?
I do not have anything else, Board President.
And Brian, do you have anything to bring up?
Sure. Yes, I do, Mrs. Cipoletti. I wanted to make the board aware that recently we had a resolution that we wrote to our legislators about a proposed health benefits increase. It was 15.9%, and New Jersey school boards as well as New Jersey school business officials had asked us to protest this raise. The state passed it today, so for for calendar year 2023, our health benefits are going to go up 15.9%. So it's a large increase, and at this point, it looks like it's sticking.
And there's no other options we really have as far as healthcare goes, correct?
Right now, we're in this plan, and we're pretty much going to have to stay there.
Okay, thank you. We went through a committee report last meeting related to finance, so we're going to move into approval of minutes. Can I ask for a motion to approve the minutes of September 19th of 2022?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I will second it.
Okay, Brian, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Diambola?
Yes.
Ms. Grosso?
Yes.
Mrs. Cipoletti?
Yes.
3-0, motion passed.
Thank you, Brian. We're going to now move to public comments on agenda items, and please hold them to agenda items only at this time. Participants shall be governed by the following. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and must preface their comments by an announcement of their name and address. Statements are to be limited to 3 minutes duration and may only address items on the agenda at this particular time. Participants may speak no more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard, and all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. If anyone has any questions or comments on the agenda, please come up to the podium.
How are you? My name is Louis DaCosta. I live at 12 Seymour Street in Caldwell. I am an assistant scoutmaster with the Boy Scouts. I believe we should be on the agenda for approval for Tuesday nights at the Washington School. We just kind of just wanted to put it out there. We've been with the community for a very, very long time. We've been at Washington School for a very, very long time, and we're feeling sort of pushed out by the rec department. So pre-pandemic, we were always at Washington School. As far as I know, I think it was about 20 years. Post-pandemic, we couldn't obviously get, we couldn't get in, and then we had found out that the rec department had went in and got the board's approval to use the school on Tuesday nights. This was last fall. In speaking with the board, I mean, you know, the assistants at the Mr. Conklin's office, Dr. Conklin's office, really great to work with. You know, Kerry Ryan's amazing, Barbara's amazing, like just really, really nice people. So I thank them for all their help. But I guess what I'm just trying to say is we really don't want to fight with the rec department. We feel like we do a lot for the community, and we would love just to have our Washington School back on Tuesday nights so we can continue to do the programs that we do. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for everything you do for the community. You guys do a lot. Any other questions or comments on the agenda at this time?
Hi, Liz Hart, 149 Ravine Avenue. I have two questions related to the agenda. One is in regards to the annual workshop. So how is it determined who gets to go on the board? Is that just something that everyone gets to go to, or is that just because it is our money, so just curious?
It's open to anybody on the board who decides they'd like to go, yes.
Okay, so anyone that's a current member. Okay, great. And then I also have a question on the consultant services where the vendor Harvey Marshall Burling Associates, it says the services are for consulting for their GCMS auditorium upgrades. So I do have a child that is in GCMS, and I know Dr. Caldwell, you were super excited to announce last year that the auditorium was going to be redone. So do we have any idea when that will be?
Well, it's just preliminary now, so we're hiring them to come give us a consult on what it's going to look like, what it's going to cost, and then we have to get approval once we have plans. So it does take several months to a year, but it's something we already kind of know what we want to do, so hopefully it'll go a little faster. I don't want to give anyone a false sense how fast construction happens, especially when you need state approval for things.
Okay, so the approval was just for the auditorium to be rebuilt, not the actual funding for the auditorium, or was there an actual budget that was set aside for that?
So there's a dollar amount set aside, but this
Okay.
is a preliminary study on what it would look like, what we want to do. So you give them all the information, you give them your specs, and then they come out and they look at it and give you a better idea what that's going to cost.
Okay, so we hope 23, 24, or we don't want to say?
I don't want to make any promises that I'll regret later on, so.
Okay.
At this point, we are starting the process.
Great,
But the money is set aside, so we kind of have an idea what we want to do and what we want it to look like. So the faster we can get all these approval done, the faster we could start with hammers and
okay, awesome. Thank you, that's all my
pry
questions for
bars
agenda.
and whatever else they're going to use to.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on the agenda at this time? Okay, if not, we're going to move into subject area. I'm going to go with curriculum and technology.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve item letters A through G under curriculum technology on the agenda this evening.
Do we have a second?
I will second it.
Any questions or comments?
H, I have to say H even though that's the vote?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's other letters. My bad.
I know, I had done that too, but
The way it was done, I thought
My
that
buddy
was the
here helped
confidence.
me.
It's A through G.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes.
Okay, Brian, take the vote.
Mr. Diambola,
Yes.
Ms. Grosso,
yes.
Mr. Cipolleti,
Yes.
3-0, motion carried.
Thank you, Brian. Ms. Grosso, personnel.
Yep. I'd like to make a motion to approve under certificated staff, letters A through Q under personnel, and then non-certificated staff, letters A through I, please.
Do we have a second?
I will second it.
Any questions or comments? Brian, take the vote, please.
Mr. Diambola,
Yes.
Ms. Grosso,
Yes.
Mr. Cipolleti,
Yes.
3-0, motion carried.
Mr. Dambola, finance, please.
Finance and facility, under the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, a motion to approve items A through F under finance and A under facilities on this evening's agenda.
Do you have a second?
I'll second. And then can I just ask for clarification?
Sure.
Dr. Conklin or Brian, for the Boy Scouts, so is the issue that we're approving the multi-purpose room and they'd like to use the gym? Is that, I just want to be clear on the issue.
The multi-purpose room and the gym are the same room.
Okay.
So we already had the approval of the previous, so we're offering them Harrison School in place of Washington after November.
I see.
So we're just moving them over to Harrison School.
Okay.
They could stay at Washington, but the multi-purpose room is the basketball court and all the other things that the rec uses.
Okay.
Brian, take the vote, please.
Mr. Diavola.
Yes.
Ms. Grosso.
Yes.
Mr. Cipolleti.
Yes.
3-0, motion carried.
Thank you. And Chris, policy?
Policy. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, can I have a motion to approve items A and B on this agenda under policy?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Brian, take the vote, please.
Mr. Diavola.
Yes.
Ms. Grosso.
Yes.
Mr. Cipolleti.
Yes.
3-0, motion carried.
Thank you, Brian. And now we're going to move to public comments on anything outside the agenda. Again, the same rules apply. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and must preface their comments by their announcement of their name and address. Statements are to be limited to 3 minutes duration and may address any items. Participants may speak no more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard, and all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. If there's any questions or comments, please come up to the podium.
Hi, I'm Taryn Kaufman. I live at 35 Marshall Street in West Caldwell. I just have a very simple question. Now that there seems to be 2 people running for a Board of Ed, will there be like a meet the candidates type of event or something where we can hear what issues they agree and disagree with?
Want to address that? There will be an open forum or debate in October.
October.
I will get the date for you. It's going to be in the West Caldwell Library.
Okay.
But that's not led by the district. The
Right,
district
I was
doesn't get
just
involved in the
curious.
election.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Hello, my name is Robert Bykowski. I'm the Scoutmaster from Troop 9. And I just want to make a comment as to what we were offered. I'm aware of Tuesday nights at Washington School through November. The way it was presented us for Harrison School was the fact that there were no janitors available for that particular moment in January. So I just wanted to let you know that's what we heard, just to kind of clarify it a little bit.
So for your meeting in January, I'm sorry,
We were offered Washington School through November, which we graciously accepted, and it was great. And I know, we're looking for some sort of compromise, and Harrison, it looks to fit the bill because it has a gym and everything. But the way it was communicated to us for January on was the fact that Harrison was not available due to the fact that there were no janitors that could staff it for that particular time period. I mean, that's just what was conveyed, and I just want to let you guys know.
If you just give me a call tomorrow, I know I talked to the assistant scoutmaster. We'll work it out for you.
Okay, very
We'll
good.
make sure you have something available to you that either Harrison School or something else. We'll make sure it's available.
Fantastic, thank you.
You're welcome.
any other questions or comments?
Hi, Liz Hart, 149 Ravine. I have a whole bunch of questions, so I'm going to try to speak quickly to hit the time frame. So the first question is there somewhere on the website that lists what committee each Board of Ed member represents? Because I could just as easily send emails to a bunch of people, but I literally have no idea which committee the Board of Ed members sit on. So is there something on the site?
It's approved in the minutes before, but I'll make sure they post it online so it's clear. If you're not seeing it underneath.
It's
the
not.
board,
I've gone through
It's
the
supposed
whole
to be
site.
underneath the Board of Education, who's on what committee.
Yeah.
It's approved when we do the reorganization
Okay.
last January.
Okay.
But it's supposed to be easily accessible, so I'll talk to my secretary who manages and make sure it goes up underneath the Board of Education.
Okay,
So you'll
perfect.
be able to click on it, committees or something,
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay, Amazing. And so to that, so because I don't know like who those people are, I'm gonna just ask general questions, hopefully. So as it relates to the curriculum, what is, or how long does it generally take to roll out new or revised curricula? Is anyone, can somebody?
So curriculum usually works under a 5-year cycle.
Okay.
So every 3 to 5 years, the curriculum is updated unless there's a required update from the Department of Education, locally, so we adopt a new textbook, so we update the curriculum. We want to add a class, we have to update the curriculum. But typically, curricular updates happen every 3 to 5 years. So there's a schedule that the assistant superintendent and the 2 directors of curriculum, K to 5 and 6 to 12, have in their office for updating different subject matter. Unless you adopt a new textbook or you decide to adopt a new math program, then the curriculum moves up on that timeline.
Okay, so then as it relates to the health and phys ed curriculum, how was that timeline worked in?
So the Department of Education updated the curriculum.
Right.
So it was something that had to be updated right away. So they started a committee last year and they updated the curriculum. And then we got to the end of the summer, we were presenting the curriculum and there was concerns from the community, and the board heard the concerns and asked us to review the curriculum again. Luckily for us, the curriculum is written in a way that it says by the end of certain grades. So
Okay.
we'll still be able to get to all the updates to the curriculum before the end of 2nd grade, end of 5th grade, 6th grade, 8th grade. So there is some flexibility in the curriculum. So we're hoping to have the final version presented to the public by the December board meeting. We have other scheduled events that I'm gonna send an email out in the next week or so to define, you'll see it this day, and then we'll have opportunity for public comment these days, free Google. Then there'll be opportunities to have conversations with the PE health teacher, the principal, building administrators, district administrators in each building. So there'll be a whole list of different dates that you'll see in the next week or so.
Okay, great. So then if your child is currently taking health now in the beginning of the year, and let's say this curriculum doesn't roll out until spring or whatever it may be, is this going to be a curriculum that is addressed only in health class, or is it just going to be?
So it's addressed in the health classes, but anyone who doesn't necessarily get the curriculum, we'll make sure that we recognize what it is. There wasn't substantial updates,
Okay.
but there are several updates, so every student will get exposed to whatever those updates were. We already have a health curriculum now, we have a PE curriculum now, so we're using that, but with the updates, we'll make sure we target those students, especially at the middle school, where they
Right.
run on cycles. We know some of those students may
Right.
miss that health information. Any updates to that health curriculum, we have highlighted, so we'll make sure, we'll have a list of those students who didn't get that, and we'll make sure we get them that information. Whether that's during PE class or whatever, because usually the PE teacher does health at the same time. So if it's a health cycle, we may use a PE class to teach health, just to make sure they got that curriculum that they might have missed because they missed a cycle. There'll be a plan in place to do that.
Okay, wonderful. And then I know because there's been so much public attention on the health and physical education curriculum that, there's been a lot of input from parents and feedback and blah, blah, blah. But as it relates to AAPI curriculum, that was, what do you call it? Let me look at my notes. So Governor Murphy in January of this year signed legislation that will ensure that the contributions, history, and heritage of the AAPI community were to be included in the New Jersey Student Learning Standards for social studies for K through 12. So is this something that has also been addressed and rolled out, or did we already meet the standards?
So they're looking at, again, committees will meet and then they'll update the curriculum to include those standards, and it might be a cross-content. So we're actually looking at it because we have several cross-content programs, like our language arts program at our high school works together with the social studies program for world cultures. It might be something that we adopt into both. So our current director of curriculum instruction, 6 to 12, is coming in. So that's something that we're going to address with them to make sure we get a committee together that we adopt these books. But there already have been several books adopted to include that
For part of this year.
for part of this year.
Great. Okay, so I have 2 more things, sorry. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, great. So I saw also on the agenda about the Week of Respect from October 3rd to October 7th, which I think is great. But I did want to call out that September 15th through October 15th is Hispanic Heritage Month. And my son, who is a student at GCMS, has not heard anything about it, and so I don't want to say that that has not been acknowledged in the high school or across the 4 elementary schools, but I was curious as to whether that was something that has actually been.
There's a list of activities that all the schools have planned to do that, so.
And
If it
that
hasn't
was-
happened yet, again, it might be something for the month that they plan to do, but I know I have received a list of activities that they plan to do for Spanish Heritage Month.
Across all schools? or-
K to 12.
Okay, but we don't know when that's going to be communicated?
Each school has their own activities planned.
And then we don't hold the principals of each school accountable to ensure that they even acknowledge that the month has started, like on Thursday?
Each school plans their own thing. I don't want to say anything that I'll be wrong about.
Okay.
So if you would email me tomorrow,
Sure.
I'll get you the information from each of the buildings, what their plans were and what they did.
Okay, great. And then my last question is for Mr. McCarthy, which is, I know I brought this up last year or earlier in the year about the budget process, and I believe you said it starts sometime in October for the following year, for the upcoming year, so just wanted to ask if that was something that we were gonna be, we meaning the community would be informed more on.
So the budget process does in fact start in October.
Right.
As far as where the community sees it, it's really early in the process. When I say it starts, it's really when I start talking to the administration, principals. We'll have meetings coming up soon. I'll share with them a calendar so they can start getting information together to give to me that I can compile and then give to superintendent to see whether these are some of the goals and that we can allocate resources to.
Okay.
So that's the process, and then you will see the community start seeing the budget, really the details in January, where we might start talking about the programs. But you're not going to see a lot of details that early. If that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Okay, thank you, that's it.
Thanks.
And Ms. Hart, at a high level from the curriculum committees, curriculum and technology are Ms. Grosso and Mrs. Dembola. Finance and facilities are Mr. Elko and Ms. Getty. And for shared services, it's myself and Ms. Getty. Those are your key committees. Whoops.
Jessica Crown, 183 Forest Avenue. This is for everybody, I suppose, because again, I don't know who's involved in what committee, but also for Dr. Conklin. At the last meeting, I mean, we're approaching a month in a couple days from the last meeting. I had emailed a few days following that meeting inquiring about the approach that would be taken for the meeting with parents, with the faculty of each school. And there was a response which was received, which I was very happy to hear that it would not take place at back to school night, because I felt that the principals and teachers, faculty at each school, their backs would be up against the wall against parents. So in the month since the last meeting, what preparation has taken place to prepare for those meetings? What is the approach for the teachers and the principals? And what approach should parents take to prepare for that conversation?
So again, we haven't released the updated version of the curriculum, so that's going to be presented to the community. There'll be probably 2 weeks for feedback and comment to the curriculum that's online through the Google portal, and then between receiving that and sometime in the middle of November, there'll be different opportunities at each building for parents to come in to ask questions about how the curriculum is going to be implemented, what the different content is going to look like, how that would be presented to their children, and that would help inform their decision about whether they want their children in that instructional time or not in that, or opt out or not opt out. And then the board curriculum committee will see the final draft of the curriculum, and then probably sometime in December they'll actually vote to adopt the curriculum. So
Okay.
that's the plan. Each building principal with the health teacher will be available with the district administrator to help respond to questions that parents may have about the process, about what the subject matter is, how that's going to be instructed in the particular grade level.
Okay, will there be a presentation of the curriculum at each event?
The curriculum's gonna be available online for 2 weeks. So
Okay.
there isn't gonna be a specific presentation. It's gonna be outlined on the website and available for parents to preview and go through the entire time. There'll be highlighted areas of, these are the new standards, and then we're gonna also provide an additional summary of the particular content. So there'll be a summary, there'll be the curriculum, parents review that, I would come with questions or concerns that they bring up, and that will be responded to by the teacher who is actually gonna be teaching the content to the students, or the building principal. If you're uncomfortable, this is the process for opting out for that particular subject matter, for that particular class, whatever that is.
Okay. And is there going to be a separate curriculum written for the opt-out students?
No, the students
As-
will see an alternative program. There's no alternative curriculum. They'll just opt it out of that lesson. They'll have an alternative assignment.
Okay, because there have been responses in the local communities where students who opt out will not receive any repercussions for opting out, families that choose to do so, but they will be placed in an independent study area where they will have some kind of family life, sexual education, something of that nature. It needs to be within the curriculum, but not to the standards that we're opting out from. So my question here is, if we choose to take the same approach and opt out to have alternate health education, what is that health education?
It would be not.
Is there a
it's
separate
when you're opting
curriculum
out,
for
there's
that?
no separate curriculum. So they may adopt something specific to that. They may assign something alternative. I couldn't say what the alternative assignment would be. If you're opting out of a particular subject area, you wouldn't be getting instruction in that subject area. It would be alternative to that.
Okay.
I can't say specifically what that would be.
I'm not sure if I've used up all of my time, but I just have one more quick question is,
Unless anybody objects, feel free to go. No objections, I think you're good.
thank you. As we learned from the last meeting, there was a lot of sensitivity around the videos and the material that was recommended from the state, which is a huge concern. Are those materials, are our subject matter experts utilizing those materials, relying on what's recommended from the state, or are we taking a more appropriate approach?
We're only going to be utilizing materials that we already utilize, so it won't be outside materials, if that's what you're asking. So it'll only be internal materials, so Brain Pop, kidshealth.org, like specific sponsored programs. It wouldn't be some of the
Okay.
videos that were recommended.
And are those sources or resources going to be provided to the parents?
So
with
there'll
the
be links
curricu-
in the curriculum to those for people to peruse.
prior to the meetings
There'll
at
be
the
2
schools?
weeks it'll be open to the public to review for
Okay.
those 2 weeks. It'll remain open the whole entire time.
Okay.
But I'm saying the comment window will be for those 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then the comment window will close, and then there'll be a presentation at each of the buildings. And hopefully by the end of that, we'll have all the comments we need, so that way we could better prepare for alternative assignments or other things that parents bring up that, we need to make sure we're ready for as we go into the rest of the school year.
Okay, excellent, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
How you doing? Frank Boccio, 51 Park Street. Last month, I might have come off a little sideways, so I wanted to say thank you for pushing everything back. When I left the meeting last month, I tried to go home and find the videos, but the links were already disabled. And then it also seemed like nobody on the board had seen the videos that day. So is the board and the administrators going to see the videos before, the videos and the draft curriculum before it goes live for?
Well, there are no
for us
plans to
see?
have any videos?
No videos on the,
Any videos that are connected to the curriculum.
okay,
It may be websites, it may be other activities, but there'll be no outside videos that will make part of the curriculum.
okay, so that's good then too. And then I had one other question. Does each elementary school principal make a decision on parent visitors separately, or is that a sort of a town thing?
I understand your question. Sorry.
I saw something where a parent was at his son's kindergarten class reading a story. And I had asked when my son started last week if parents were allowed in the school to do something like that or observe, and I was told no. So I'm just trying to see if it's school by
Well,
school?
there are still some restrictions on parent visitors. I couldn't say specifically. If you email me specifically what the concerns were and what building it was, I could probably better address it.
Okay.
I don't know, there could have been something going on that day that there needed to be restrictions. I don't know.
Okay.
So if you could give me more information, obviously not
Sure.
in this forum,
Yeah.
but if you could email me tomorrow and give me some more information, then I could look into it better for you.
Okay, great. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, hi, I'm Taryn Kaufman, 35 Marshall Street, West Caldwell. I'm your go-to girl for easy questions again. So when the curriculum does get put up for the 2 weeks, will we actually receive an email saying that it's open, or should we just constantly be checking?
No, in a week or so, I want to solidify dates to make sure there's no conflict. I'll say it's going to be posted on this day, and that's the day it'll be posted. And I'll say the availability for input through the Google platform will run from this date to this date. Please share your information, and then the building principals will send out, this is our day that we're doing our evening, this is our day we're doing our evening, and some parents actually have students in multiple schools, so I want to make sure there's no conflict, even in elementary schools. Some students go to 2 different elementary schools, so we want to make sure that they don't all run the same day. And November's a little tricky because of teacher convention, Thanksgiving, so we got to make sure we don't hit into any day. So there'll be information that gets out in plenty of time for everyone to make plans.
Awesome, see, easy answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just, we saw a preliminary schedule. I think it's pretty, I think the board is pretty comfortable with the schedule and timeframes you're gonna be able to. So you'll be receiving that in the next,
Probably by the end of this week.
yeah, so by the end of the week.
So there'll be an email similar to when I send the email blast out with a little letter saying these are the timelines, these are the dates, and then there'll be more information to follow.
Jessica Crown, 183 Wars. As far as the parents in the community who do not have children in school yet, how will this be communicated to them? Is it just going out to
I can't help that. I can't.
students that
communicate.
are in the
Right.
schools currently?
Only existing students.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
They could go on our website though and see if they want, but they won't have open comment because they're not part of the internal reporting through Google, so they wouldn't have access to that.
And Dr. Conklin will be highlighting what's changed from the prior.
Right, so the curriculum, again, you'll see the highlighted areas, these are the new things. That's what's kind of taking the time now. There's not a lot of new standards, but we want to make sure we reflect where the new standards are, so if, parents could go right to those new standards.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay. If not, we are going to ask for a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I will second it.
Great. Brian, can you take the roll, please?
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Great, thank you. On the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, we are now going to enter executive session. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.